So much to talk about, Keith. I want to get to the substance of some of the things Hillary Clinton was talking about, but just quickly, the fact that we're even seeing her there in that way. I mean, she is answering more reporters' questions now on her campaign plane, but it's been 278 days since there's been any news conference like that one. Is that quite a significant departure, or is this a new Hillary Clinton, or what are we seeing there?
I think it's a recognition that she was very vulnerable to attacks on that score, that she hadn't been meeting with the press. Donald Trump brings it up all the time, of course, but so do other media when they're talking about Hillary Clinton, even sympathetic media such as MSNBC, who is very pro-Hillary, saying, well, you know, she really should have a news conference. But I think it also indicates how the campaign changes now that we're after Labor Day, and the impact of having a campaign plane, which means you're cooped up with a more or less permanent residency of journalists. She was scrumming with them earlier this week as well. So, you know, she recognizes the need to be on the air every day, but also to be accountable every day as well.
So let's talk about some of the things that she said, because they take us back to last night's Commander-in-Chief Forum. It wasn't a debate per se. It was one and then the other, although they were discussing each other individually. But she was mentioning some of the things that people have been talking about as far as Donald Trump last night. Light on specifics, but very heavy on his praise for Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia. And that was something that Hillary Clinton just spoke of as being unpatriotic, insulting, and even scary. Trump on Putin last night, was that something, or was that one of the most striking things that you took away from his discussion?
Well, it was, and it has been for some time. You know, you would think that he would be vulnerable on that point, be vulnerable to being too cozy with Vladimir Putin, who at different times in American history has been their arch enemy. You know, good relations with Russia has been something in the recent past. It certainly hasn't been something in the present, but Donald Trump has been saying he can get closer to Russia by being more friendly, really, with Vladimir Putin. He's said many things during this campaign that are sympathetic and flattering even to Putin, and it doesn't seem to affect his core constituency. They don't seem bothered by that, even though there are many instances in the last 2 or 3 years where you can see that Russia has been deliberately hostile to American global interests, both in the Middle East and in Eastern Europe. So it is a curious thing that he kind of doubles down on that, even though you would think that it would be a great vulnerability for him in his campaign.
So let us talk about some of the things that are fueling the Donald Trump campaign. You can't see me, I don't think, from there, but for our viewers, I've printed out all 20. Can you see it? Okay, 22 pages in hand. This is not an article. This is a treatise that Keith Boag has written that is now online, CBC.ca, and it is a wonderful read. It's called Make America White Again. And Keith has just posted that. It looks at the forces that are buoying Donald Trump in the polls, that are carrying his campaign on, which will be definitive come November the 8th, 2 months from today. So can we, number one, I want to talk about that with you for just a couple of minutes, Keith. Number one, tell me about what gave rise to this article, where you were at the end of August and what you were observing and who you were talking to.
Well, I actually took some time off at the end of August, as many of us do, and took a couple of weeks to write that, but I had been thinking about it for more than a year. When I first started paying attention to the Donald Trump campaign, like everyone else, I noticed that his campaign launch was a remarkable thing, where he seemed to be explicit about pushing buttons that were attached to racial resentments in the United States, when he talked about Mexican immigrants and so on, illegal immigrants, and how they were racists and how they were rapists and bringing drugs into America and so on. And then I began to notice how that message was being heard by what we call the alt-right in America, which is the extreme right, the ultra-right. It includes neo-Nazi groups and white nationalists, white supremacists, and so on. And so I did a story about a year ago on that phenomenon and contrasted it with what I thought was a more mainstream kind of Donald Trump supporter, a fellow named Ed Hunter, who I refer to repeatedly in this article because I've stayed in touch with him over the year, and he has been a tremendously helpful insight into the feelings of Trump supporters for all of that time, giving me detailed and thoughtful explanations for the campaign that oftentimes were very, very prescient. And so I thought, you know, at the end of the summer, that's actually worth telling people about, because I think it helps to illustrate the process by which we have all come to understand what the Trump campaign has meant in a more serious fashion, because obviously a year ago, almost no one was taking this seriously. And this piece is really about why some people saw it more seriously right from the beginning, why people heard a message that mainstream reporters didn't hear as long ago as a year ago.
I just want to use our conversation as a tease, if you will, to get people to read it. So let us drive them to online, because it's well worth the time. At 22 pages, can I hope that it's the first chapter of a book by the well-regarded political writer Keith Boag in Washington? I don't know. I want you on the record on that, Keith Boag.
There are going to be libraries filled with books about this campaign. The competition to get on the shelf for one of those is going to be pretty stiff.
Well, you've got the makings of a great start. So we'll send people to CBCNews.ca. Thank you, Keith. I'll speak to you again soon on this. The article that you see there is Make America White Again, as Keith takes a look at the heart of Donald Trump's support and the issues that raises for the United States of America at this time. CBC News Network continuing. We'll bring you the headlines coming up, and I'll see you tomorrow morning.